This podcast is brought to you by iPlayHockey.ca. iPlay is the leading hockey insurance provider to coaches, camp instructors, spring and summer hockey leagues, and tournaments across Canada. If you need insurance for hockey, iPlay has you covered. iPlay also provides hockey players and coaches with a wide range of free tools, drills, and skills in their drill vault to enhance on-ice performance, and they provide crucial off-ice knowledge as well. So if you need insurance for a hockey team, league, or camp, or if you just want to teach your kids some new drills, head on over to iPlayHockey.ca and check out their new website.
Hey everybody, how we doing? Welcome to episode 265 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody Abrams and Melbourne back with you, and thank you for your understanding in our little scheduling change this week. We had some technical issues trying to record on Sunday night, so unfortunately weren't able to get an episode out on Monday, but now we have got one out sort of midweek. So there we go with this episode on Wednesday this time around. So thank you for that. This is going to be a fun one, boys. Talking about Artemi Panarin, the biggest fish available ahead of the NHL trade deadline, which is just over a month away. March 6th is the big day for the NHL trade deadline. Waiting to see what's happening with New York Rangers forward Artemi Panarin, who has been held out of their lineup until the Olympic break here, which is fast approaching. And him and his agent, Paul Theophanis, are trying to facilitate a trade. So we'll see what happens there. So we've got some mock trades coming for you involving Artemi Panarin. Before we get to that, we've got Core 4 stories coming up here on the pod.
In a special turn of events.
Core 4.
Well, I'm already off to a hot start here driving the ship. I am the captain tonight. Went ahead and cut it off because we did talk beforehand and it was going to be passed to me so I could pass it to Core 4, but here we are throwing Harp under the bus. All right, first story for Core 4 this week is one I got to witness firsthand, and that was the return of Linus Ullmark after his 35-day personal leave. And it turned out that I didn't get tickets to the Devils versus Sens, but instead I got tickets to the Linus Ullmark show because he was phenomenal in that game, actually won the game for the Senators. But more importantly was how warm of a story it was in the support he received from his fans. Before the players had come out, they announced the starters. He received the standing ovation when his name was called out as the starting netminder for the Senators. And then before the national anthem, they put him on the Jumbotron. The crowd went absolutely crazy for him again. He was patting his chest, thanking them for their support. And it was really something to see. There were "We love you" Ullmark signs, "We support you," "Welcome home," all of these signs throughout the whole stadium. And during one of the TV timeouts, they actually played some testimonials from fans thanking Ullmark for speaking out about mental illness. And that it's all right to not be all right. And the fans were those who have some fans that have suffered from anxiety and depression in the past, and just, how much they appreciated Ullmark's actions and how much it meant to him. So it was really quite cool to see this story kind of firsthand at the game, but really warming.
For sure. And he played really well too, which is just the cherry on top. And they got that win, unfortunately, against your Devils there, Case. So you had front row seats to the Linus Ullmark show. He's back. And for Sens fans, they're hoping that he can keep that play going so they can make a push for the playoffs here, like every other team in the Atlantic and the East, where it's all still pretty tight. There's been some separation, but it's all still pretty tight, and the Sens are definitely still in it. I saw the comments after the game, too, from Linus Ullmark talking about the support he received from the fans, and just like that's really special. That was a cool moment. All the rumors that were swirling, when he first took his leave of absence and his sit-down interview to talk about it and address those head on, and for him to sort of come out and say, listen, this is why people in the NHL don't take these leaves, because we know that there's going to be rampant speculation. So for him to come back and to play well, to get the win, to get the support from the fans, I thought that was awesome.
Totally. First of all, my bad. Forgot there that we were switching it up a little bit this week. But look, that was really nice to see that interview that he did with Claire Hanna the other week. Really eye opening, really powerful. Clearly, the guy has been going through it, but good on him to come back in. Obviously, nerve wracking to come into a big situation like that where your team needs a win at home. The place is buzzing, but the Sens fans certainly were behind him. No surprise there. And he played great too. And this is what the Ottawa Senators look like when they get saves. They're on a 4-game win streak now. Allmark being back is a big part of it. I think has helped galvanize the group. And of all the teams in the Eastern Conference that are out of the playoff or out of a playoff spot right now, excuse me, the Senators are one of the best teams in terms of goal differential. And that's been a thing that we've been talking about sort of all season, is that the Senators have really good underlying numbers, but they've been undone by their goaltending. So I think Allmark's coming back at the perfect time. They can look forward to getting some saves and maybe make a run at it here, a late season run like we've seen before from the Ottawa Senators to try to get into the playoffs. But Saturday night was awesome. Good to see Allmark back and doing okay.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, the glaring difference between the last two games that I've been to at the Canadian Tire Center. The one against Montreal where they got absolutely lit up, and I think Marilyn made 10 saves or something like that. And then switch it to now, and Allmark just standing on his head. I mean, pucks coming out from the corner, high slot or middle slot, sprawling glove save, robbery, just backdoor robbery over and over again. He looks so good. And, half of the cheers coming from the fans are because they want to welcome him back from a tough personal break. And then the other half is probably just because they haven't seen goaltending like that in so long.
Yeah.
So that was certainly exciting. But now we'll switch to a story that seriously lacked goaltending, and that was the outdoor game in Florida. The first ever outdoor game in Florida, NHL game that is, because they did play the NCAA game. And I think they got pretty lucky with the weather. It was 6 degrees Celsius that night, and you could actually see some breath coming out of people, and they're all wearing coats, which caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. I looked at the weather, and the next day was 22 degrees Celsius. So unbelievably lucky. And it was to the point where they actually had to heat up the ice before the game to make it safe enough for them to use. The NHLPA was there checking on the ice because if it gets too cold, it will crack and then it becomes unsafe. Not really what you expect in the Sunshine State, but did that game ever get heated up in another way later on? And that's with a goalie fight and 5 goals unanswered and then 4 goals unanswered. Quite the outdoor game.
BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp.
Yeah, just absolutely nuts. People are saying it's maybe the best outdoor game ever. And the reason is on the screen right there. And as you alluded to, Case, the goalie fight between these two legends here who just made it about them in the moment, which is fantastic. Clearly looked at each other and went, listen, we're in a great moment right now. We could really captivate this audience. Why not? Center ice, goalie fight, these incredible jerseys, the whole pirate theme that they leaned into, the whole comeback that happened, the 8 straight minutes of power plays, just an incredible game start to finish. People are saying it was one of the best. And yeah, wow. I just goalies have been going nuts recently in all leagues. We've been getting goalie fight after goalie fight, it seems. And for them to do it on the biggest stage in the NHL, outdoors in the Sunshine State, like, unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. That's like one of the highlights of the season, honestly. And also something I didn't mention too was the overtime goal that wasn't a goal because the whistle blew, but nobody heard it, I guess, because there's no room for the sound to reverberate. So like that was crazy too. And then losing it in a shootout. So what an incredible game. I wish I watched more of it, to be honest. Saw the highlights, obviously, but yeah, just crazy one.
Yeah, certainly was. What a spectacle. Raymond James Stadium sold out. What a crowd. And the jerseys, all of it. Like, I love those Tampa Bay uniforms. Gorgeous. The Boston, all yellows. Gorgeous as well. The goalie fight, the end-to-end action, the goals at both ends. John Cooper's outfit as well.
Yes.
I'm glad
Fantastic.
someone mentioned that.
And looking like Al Pacino from The Godfather, I believe it is. Like, he's got the cigar after the game.
No,
all
Scarface.
of it. Scarface. Sorry, thank you. And just all of it was really great. And I think that a lot of these stadium series games over the last couple of years, they can sort of become an afterthought. And I mean, how many times have we sat here and said, geez, I forgot that was happening? Well, this could have been one of those times. There we go. Like, that is perfect. And yes, Scarface instead of The Godfather. Gosh, I'll be
You'll hear from me on that one.
Yeah, that's
say
right.
hello to my little friend. You know that one, Harp?
Yes, but that was fantastic. And again, this game had the potential to kind of be just another game, become an afterthought, but it was really well done from start to finish, all of it, and hope to see more like this in the future.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention the goal 11 seconds into the game to kind of really spark things here. It was really something to watch. We ended up, I had to step away from the game so that we could try to record on that Sunday night and then weren't able to. So I was shocked to go back downstairs and find the score out and see what was happening in that game. That was quite phenomenal to come back. And then, yeah, I missed the goalie fight, which sucks. But speaking of goalies, the Edmonton Oilers have waived Calvin Pickard in kind of a bit of a shocking move, but the drama never ends in the goalie carousel in Edmonton. And can you believe these segues I'm pumping out here? Just quickly, it would take
I was going to say, really well done.
Segue tour guide to keep up with me. And those.
There you go.
I mean, so it comes a bit of a surprise that Calvin Pickard gets waived, considering he went 7-0 in the postseason last year and also had a record of 22-10-1 in the regular season. This season has been an absolute struggle. 5-6-2 record, 8.71 save percentage. What do you think about this one? In particular, the goalie here, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy. He was one of their guys last year. They obviously traded Skinner. They tried to fix their goaltending problem, and Pickard was the guy they kept, whether that was because they believed in him or he was a better fit in the room or just wouldn't fetch as much return. We'll never really know. It's probably a combination of all of those things, but just kind of, it's very interesting that they make this move. And talk about a team in cap hell right now. Like, you've got to waive this guy just to activate someone off IR here. Like, what are we doing if you're the Oilers? Like, this is not a move I saw coming, especially because of the two other guys that they've got. Like, Jari hasn't been a world beater. In fact, he's been worse than Skinner since the trade. And Connor Ingram, as we know, he's been a guy who has been up and down when he's available. And the biggest knock on him is that he hasn't always been available in the first place. So bit of a bizarre move for me. Pickard's just been so good for them in terms of just a guy who fits into that locker room, and he's been with them through thick and thin here. So bizarre move for me. I don't really know what to make of it.
Yeah, a little surprised they decided to waive Pickard as well, a guy that they weren't willing to put in the trade with Pittsburgh to get Tristan Jarry. They put Skinner in there instead, and that's because they've constantly said over the last, year and a half to 2 years here that Pickard is a really, really good teammate and a really popular guy in that room. He's particularly close with a guy like Leon Draisaitl, and he had some really heartwarming things to say about Pickard after the fact, just about what a great teammate he is, how popular he is in the dressing room. But at the end of the day, they kind of forced their own hand. They had to make some sort of a move. It's really too bad. And honestly, I'm surprised that he wasn't claimed. You look at a team
Mhm.
like the Philadelphia Flyers, who could use another goalie. You look at the New York Rangers, who are without Igor Shesterkin, and Jonathan Quick at this rate can't play every game. I know that they are, throwing in the towel and choosing to sell ahead of the deadline and that sort of thing, but you still need another goalie. And so I'm kind of surprised that Pickard didn't get claimed. And that's good for the Oilers, I think, because Chad, as you alluded to a second ago, Ingram, yeah, he's played decently well for Edmonton, but who knows? He could get injured. Something might happen, where he becomes unavailable, and you need a guy like Calvin Pickard. So, little surprising for sure for a guy who's pretty popular in that room, but unfortunately, with their cap situation, it's a move they had to make.
Yeah, and a team that has just been so close to getting it done the last couple of years in the playoffs. It just feels odd to trade the guy that kind of seems like he has the clutch gene. Maybe I don't know. Compared to the other goalies, at least we haven't seen that from Ingram or Jari. But uh, this story did have a bit more punch because on Sunday it was when they put him on waivers. So it was like, ooh, does he get claimed? Will the gamble pay off? 2 days later, it's less of a story, but still thought it
Yeah.
was interesting. And I do have to put some respect on Connor Ingram's name because I picked him up a few weeks ago in fantasy, just midweek panic pickup because I was in a tight matchup. And on the Sunday night, he got a shutout, which
Hmm.
ultimately allowed me to beat Harper by 2 points in our
Oh,
matchup. So
That's right.
big respect to Connor
dude.
Ingram.
Speaking of fantasy, I didn't start Joe Wool on Saturday. Or whatever day it was that Stolars played, and he was on my bench. It was actually Wool played the game, but I played Stolars in my lineup. You know what I mean? So like I started the wrong guy. Wool gets 8 points, and I lose to Allen by 2 points. Just disgusting. And now I'm fighting to stay in a playoff spot after I just bought before the deadline. So it's tough. It's tough out here.
I saw you buy at the deadline and then lose that matchup, and I was like, "Ooh,
I think I've lost like 3 in a row now, or maybe 4. It's not going well.
Same here, and like a couple of close ones, like the one against you case last week. That one hurts for sure. And by the way, guys, it just in fantasy quickly for me, I'm in a tough spot goaltending wise. I've got all three Washington Capitals goaltenders. I picked up Clay Stevenson starting his second game in a row here as we're recording and going for his third straight NHL win, looking to give the Caps their third win in a row or fourth win in a row, potentially. And I had to because I had to make a move because Lindgren and Thompson are both out. So I've got Clay Stevenson in, and I've got all three Capitals goaltenders. How about that?
Clay Stevenson. This is how people know that we have 20 teams in our league, because
That's right.
on waivers we're picking up Clay Stevenson
Yep.
to start games.
It is something.
Sounds like maybe Harp needs to make a trade and finally not be afraid to trade, which is exactly what Tom Fitzgerald did last week.
Oh, there you go.
Finally, about time. He moved on from that Andre Palat contract. We were all begging for it to happen. He has not shown up in the score sheet. He has not really contributed in any way except a -6 in that big Islanders loss. Maybe he was already playing for them at that point. Couldn't really tell the difference. But They did end up trading him and his $6 million for 2 more years, this season and next, for Siplikov. And they included a third-round pick this year and a 2027 sixth-round pick. I personally am going to talk on this first. I'm driving the ship tonight. I got to bring up the Devils because I have that control, and I am glad to see this deal be made. A third-round pick and a sixth-round pick. I cannot complain about that. We've seen first-round picks be given up to move on from contracts. So I love that piece. Sipakov, just a big body to play in the bottom six. It's all about moving money. And now I got to see a top six forward get brought in by Tom Fitzgerald. I don't expect the Devils will be making the playoffs, but they still have to make movement in the right direction here because it's just about time.
This podcast is sponsored by SeatGeek, the absolute best ticket app out there. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals to tickets at your favorite sporting event. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. Last time I got tickets to see the Devils play, I first saw red tickets. I waited it out, monitored the price in-app, and once I saw green, I pulled the trigger. SeatGeek makes it that easy. And here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Click the link in our description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
Yeah, personally, I love this deal case. You're taking a bet on a guy like Siplikov, who, is a little bit younger, definitely isn't a young player anymore at 27, but he's got a year left. He makes less than half the money that Palat did. And there's some flexibility there, right? Like with Palat's contract, you didn't want to be retaining for the rest of it. You wanted to totally get rid of it and give yourself some flexibility. And they've done that. All they had to do was attach a couple picks. As you mentioned, we've seen first round picks or more be traded to do that. So yeah, this is, I think, a perfect deal, honestly, for both sides, because even if you're the New York Islanders here and you're taking on this massive contract, you're still getting a guy who you can argue, has been there, done that. He's won his cups. He can still be a contributor in the bottom six for a team that's pushing to not only make the playoffs, but make a run. So I don't mind it for either side here. And for New Jersey, the key part was getting off of that contract. And, as an added bonus, you get to take a shot on a bit of a younger player in Siplikov.
Yeah, I like it. Makes sense for both sides. For the New York Islanders, Palat is a guy that Matthew Darche is obviously familiar with from his time with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. You give up a couple of late round picks from New Jersey's standpoint in order to have the Islanders absorb the rest of Palat's contract. And you take a bet on a guy that I think is a worthwhile one. Still 27 years of age, reasonable cap hit, kind of got phased out in New York and caught up in a numbers game. And by taking on Siplikov, that essentially was the retention on the Devils side of it, as Elliot Friedman explained it. So I think it's a great deal. And last thing I got to say is, what world are we living in where the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Devils are making deals with each other and playing nice in the sandbox? What world are we living in right now? I had to bring that up because the Islanders, of course, made that deal with the Rangers and also or with the Devils, excuse me, and then made the Carson Soucy deal with the Rangers, all in the same division, all can't stand each other. So I had to bring that up.
Yeah, I don't know, Case, if you still have Harp or not, but I lost him. Okay. But wasn't the deal for Soucy only the third trade between those two teams, ever? Did you see that? Or is it just in the modern era? Or
I don't
those deals
know.
just don't happen.
I don't know how many. I know that the Rangers and the Devils have only traded 2 or 3 times in history, at least that I can remember. I think Grabner was the last one that I can think of.
Right.
So I mean, that puts in perspective how long ago it was. But yeah, these teams don't trade very often. It did open a little bit of lines with the Islanders when Lou Lamoriello went there, and the Devils made a couple trades with them. In particular, Travis Zajac, Kyle Palmieri for some first and picks. So those trades do happen, but very, very seldom, and it's super strange to see. I think Palat made some sort of comment that now he can still hate the Rangers or something like that, and it's like good. Like, good. I love that. You gotta like Palat. He's a good guy. I'm always going to be thankful for what he did in the playoffs against the Rangers. He scored a goal I'll never forget, just stripping the defender of the puck, battling two guys on the boards, getting it out front and scoring, or getting it to Michael McLeod, I believe it was, who scored the goal. So, yeah, he performs in the playoffs, and hopefully that's what the Islanders are going to get. I mean, I don't personally want that, but in their fandom's perspective, and in true Devils fashion, Andre Palat's first game with the Islanders, he scored the game winner and was the first star. So what can you say?
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay, boys. Panarin, I know, Harp, you got to run pretty soon. You want to watch Tage Lemieux and the 72 Montreal Canadiens here, but do we want to chat about Panarin first? Run through our mock trades.
Yes, we'll do that. First off, I just have to say that the whole point of Case doing Core 4 stories for this episode was because I was going to be out for this one. We were going to record on Sunday. I went to see Steve-O at the Brockville Arts Center. That was quite a show, by the way, and got to meet him afterwards, which was really cool. But you know what? I mean, we may have to make this a regular thing. I thought that was really well done, and just the segues in between each one. My goodness, that was great.
I like to work a segue, but I do not like to work. So maybe every other week I'll do the Core 4 stories.
There we go. Love it. All right, fellas. Yeah, Artemi Panarin mock trades. And I got to tell you guys, we're kind of risking it here a little bit because the NHL roster freeze is on Wednesday, the day that this episode will be out at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, the roster freeze lasts until February 22nd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. But you never know. We'll see what happens. I love when we do episodes like these where we play like deadline matchmaker or focus on one big name and try to figure out some mock trades. And it's just a lot of fun. And by the way, too, we're not just throwing stuff out there. We're not just blowing smoke. We've done some research. We've used Puckpedia. Thank God for them. Great site. And to make sure that these mock trades, these hypothetical deals actually work for both sides involved. Right, fellas? So anyway, let's get rocking here. And Case, do you want to start us off with your mock deal for Artemi Panarin?
Yeah, sure. First, I want to say that I almost guarantee that he gets traded tonight so that by time the episode comes out, it's going to be irrelevant what we say. Hopefully one of the three of us will be right, but in true Boys in the Booth fashion, he will be traded tonight. And with that, I'll kick it off here. And again, I hate that I'm going to be saying this, but I truly think that the Florida Panthers will be the landing spot for Artemi Panarin. It's been sort of well known by people in his circle that Panarin's number one choice. And that's a big stipulation on this trade, is that Panarin and his agent will move the no movement clause if they have an extension in place with whatever team they go to. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. And it's well known that Panarin's number one choice is to be with his best bud, Bobrovsky, in Florida. Not to mention, a few other things like two-time champs. It's in Florida, taxes, yada, yada, yada. We've heard this all before, the Florida Panthers. But it also makes sense for Florida, as they're still semi in the hunt for the playoffs, battling to stay, in the mix without their stars so far this season has been, impressive. But now Barkov is practicing again. Tkachuk is back. Guys are starting to trickle back in, even though Bennett just went down with an injury, maybe. Lundell's injured. The list goes on with them. It's so brutal, but they have, the break coming up here, time for guys to get healthy, 26 or so games to get into a wild card spot. And even if they don't happen to make the playoffs this year, they still basically have everyone locked up on friendly contracts for years to come, and they want to keep this dynasty coming. And if they don't make it this year, they'll be contenders again next year. So I think it makes a ton of sense. But in terms of logistics, they have big money coming off the books with Bob's contract coming up, that $10 million. They'll need to find a goalie or re-sign him at a cheaper rate. I have heard that they're in the mix for Wallstead. But currently they have around $15 million free next season to extend Panarin, which is a big part of the potential trade. And Panarin wants the extension. So again, that makes sense. But the one thing that may be standing in their way is they don't have a ton of draft picks. They don't have their first for the next 2 seasons, which I imagine a first will need to be a part of this trade. But they do have the 2028, and I'm sure that'll get shipped. So I see the trade requiring some prospects and ready now players, which really honestly fits the Rangers' retool outlook in the first place, more so than picks. And here's some potential names I'd throw out there. Jack Devine for sure, Grayson Sawshin, and RFA Mackie Samoskevich, who has kind of seemed like he's fallen out of favor in Florida. He's shown some real signs there in the previous seasons, but he's playing on the 4th line at the moment. I think both prospects could slot into the Rangers lineup right away, and Samoskevich has been great. But the real enticing piece here would be the most valuable piece Florida has to offer anyone at the moment, and that is Anton Lundell, who when Barkov is back, when Bennett's back, they still have Rodriguez who can play center. They're stacked down the middle. He has a ton of value with his age, his ability, and his contract being locked up to 2030 at $5 million. That's got to be an enticing piece for the Rangers, and I think that could bring in a lot of value for Artemi Panarin.
For sure. So what is the final deal case? What, all said and done?
I don't know if I want to throw out a final deal. It's going to be a mix of those pieces. I could see it being Lundell and Devine and a first for Panarin. That might even be an overpay, but I certainly see that. And if it's not Lundell, then Samoskevich will be in that trade. I don't imagine Florida wants to give up on both those forwards, because if they do want to make the playoffs this year, they're going to need the depth. But it's going to be a combination of those two ready now players, Devine and the first.
Yeah, and something interesting that you mentioned, Case, with Florida is even if they don't make the playoffs this year, right? If they get Panarin under contract and they just come back next year with basically the same group with Panarin as an addition, they're going to be right back in the hunt. And they'll be Stanley Cup contenders again. They'll be healthier. They'll have all their guys still, plus a guy who has scored 120 plus points in his career or in a season before. So, yeah. And of the teams who are in on Panarin, and by the way, we know that almost half the league is in on Panarin, the Panthers are one of the teams who would entertain an extension. And that's coming from Elliot Friedman. He said teams like Washington, LA, San Jose, Florida, and Detroit are the front runners for teams who are interested, who will be willing to sign Panarin to an extension. We also know that Panarin is seeking about a $50 million contract. So say it's 5 years, 10 mil. The AAV is a bit higher. The years come down. But think about it, guys. Florida is creative with these deals. This is what a lot of teams do, especially for free agents who are on the older side. We know what happened with Chris Tanev. He set a number and he told teams, no matter how you meet that number, I'm fine with it as long as you do. Same thing happened with Brad Marchand, right? Panthers went longer, hit his number, and that's how they ultimately got him, right? Because they're comfortable going longer because they know that as long as they keep their guys, they're going to be competitive here for the next few years. And then after that, we already got our cups. Who cares, right? And kind of go for it while they have everybody here and healthy. So, yeah, I could see them getting Panarin in a deal. I think they'd really love to keep Lundell if they can, but without a first round pick, it's going to be tough. So yeah, maybe it's a mix of Lundell or Samoskevich and some A prospects there, but I think they could do it just because Panarin is a guy who's going to want to go to Florida for all the reasons that you mentioned, and I think they'll be able to get creative with the contract. They could sign him to 8 years, guys. They could pull another Brad Marchand. Like they could sign him 8 years and keep the AAV down and keep the band together.
Just to point out the cap situation here, they have projected 15 million free next season to sign. Here's the list of players they need to sign from their current roster.
Okay.
AJ Greer, Cole Schwint, Nosek, Kunin, Samoskevich, Jeff Petrie, and Bobrovsky. Do any of those sound overly important to you other than maybe Bobrovsky?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I mean, cap-wise, they're doing so well with everyone locked up. It's just the window is open. I know that this season got derailed by injuries, so maybe it's not this season, but the window is so open, and it makes so much sense to bring in a guy who shoots with such volume, passes the puck so well, and just is an offensive threat on a team that, is more of a two-way situation.
Yeah.
Bill Zito will do whatever it takes to win. And we've seen that time and again. And when you're looking at acquiring Artemi Panarin, this caliber of player and how elite he is, you're looking past just this year, obviously, with where the Panthers are at. And by the way, might have been the Buffalo Sabres who put the dagger in their season. But anyway, they're looking past this year. He, of course, would love to go there. It's been reported that it is his preferred destination. You've got his tight friendship with Bob. They share the same agent in Paul Theophanis, and obviously the cap space next year to do it. So, don't really know what else to add other than the fact that if the Panthers were to somehow pull this off and make it work, it would not surprise me whatsoever. He's an elite player. These players don't become available very often. A ton of teams are interested, but obviously Florida is near the top or at the very top of his list.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all of the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users. And when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use our link and support the boys. So, one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth.
Yeah, and I've said this before, and I know he hasn't won anything with the Rangers, but God, you look at that production, guys, maybe the best free agent signing in the modern era. Maybe the best, because his contract at the time seemed huge, the 11.6, whatever it was, I think 11.6, and he has just produced every single year. I just flashed his numbers on the screen there. 120 points the one year, a 92, a 96, a 95. Like, consistently over 20 goals, scored 49 the one year, like just incredible player. And 34, of course, he's on the back nine right now, but Case, I agree with a lot of what you said in terms of fit with the Panthers. I think it could make a ton of sense.
Yeah, and just
okay.
The last piece on this from me is another guy that I would throw in the mix for a tradable player, because he's kind of just been upgraded from prospect to a regular guy in this lineup due to the injuries, and that's Sandisville Manis, who has looked pretty good in his cup of coffee so far here in the NHL. So that could be a guy that the Rangers look to bring in. Another guy, 22, he's had a good season for the Charlotte Checkers and makes sense to bring in to kind of be ready for next season. But Florida's got a number of their top prospects that are all playing in Charlotte, so they're all ready to make that next step, which just adds to that coming dynasty or long run. Is you need those guys making $850,000 on a team to make a deep playoff run. So
yeah, and with Panarin, that window just extends, so I could see it. Okay, my deal, guys. It's no surprise that I chose the Carolina Hurricanes. I think it's been clear to everybody around the NHL, dating back to when they went out and traded for Gensel, their interest in Marner, the deal for Rantanen, flipping him again. Like they have been interested in the big fish every single year for the past 5 years or so. This is a team who hasn't been able to get over the hump, and they want a dynamic offensive player to add to that group up front. So I have Artemi Panarin going to the Carolina Hurricanes. And unlike the Florida Panthers, they do have the draft capital to be able to get it done. And I'll just show you guys on the screen here. Like the Hurricanes, because of the Rantanen deal, are set up beautifully going forward. Obviously in 2026, as you guys can see, they don't have a second or a third, but they have their first this year. They have their first next year. They have 2 firsts in 2028. And this is a team who is good now and is going to be good for the foreseeable future. So they're looking good in terms of assets, especially with the draft capital. When it comes to young players, they also have a pretty good prospect pool. A team who has not been shy to draft uberly talented players, even if undersized. So that's sort of what I've got going back the other way. So Artemi Panarin to the Carolina Hurricanes. In exchange, they're going to get that first round pick, whether it's 2026, that's owned by Dallas or owned by Carolina, but from Dallas, or the 2027 pick, that's their own. Kasperi Kapanen going, or Kakaniemi rather, going the other way to make the money work, because we know that that's a guy they've been trying to move off of for a while now. And just to make the money work for this season, who knows going forward what the deal with Panarin looks like, if they even get a deal. We don't know if this is a team who would extend him long term, but you'd like to think that they would at least try. And Bradley Nadeau is the prospect I have going the other way. So it's Nadeau, a first, and Kakaniemi for Artemi Panarin. And if you don't know much about Bradley Nadeau, let me fill you in. So he's played 8 total games in the NHL. He has just 2 assists. But in the American League this year, he has 40 points in 32 games. He was drafted 30th overall, so a first rounder in 2023. And yeah, he's probably their number 1 prospect right now. I think if you're Carolina, you want to hold on to Nikishin, who's broken in on the back end for them. He was touted as probably their number 1 prospect up until last season, where he sort of broke in. So you probably want to keep him. But I think Nadeau, a first, and Kakaniemi to make the money work, I think that is enough for Panarin. And if you're Carolina, you hope that you can sign him and go from there. What do you guys think? Case muted.
They need to make that big move by the end of this trade deadline, because they've kind of been, left at the altar multiple times in the playoffs in the last few seasons. So it's time that they make a big splash. It makes total sense for them to bring in Panarin. They have the assets for it, as Chad's pointed out for us. And the cap situation there is pretty good itself. Similar to Florida, they have everyone locked up for the most part, except for Nikishin, who I expect to be asking for a lot of money next season. He's been so good there. And as well as their goaltending situation, they're going to have to, re-sign either Anderson or I'd assume Bussey is going to be the choice
Yeah.
here. But how much money can he demand? 27-year-old rookie. So it'll be interesting to see there. But I think it all makes sense. And sorry, just the final package was a first, Nadeau, and Kotkaniemi.
Kotkaniemi, just to make it work, or Kapanen if you want to go with the first thing I said incorrectly. Kotkaniemi, just to make the money work.
They're going to do a 3-way trade with Montreal.
The
Is that what you're
Oilers
saying?
or Montreal? Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That again satisfies the Rangers' needs. That the ready now players or the guys right away, like that can be inserted in the lineup right away. But is Kotkaniemi's value diminishing, or where are we at with him now? It's so confusing. He's been such a weird story. Drafted so high, a couple good seasons here and there. Traded for, I can't keep up. Where are we at? Where is the league at on him?
It's a fair question.
I don't think he has much value, if I'm being honest, and that's why I prefaced it by saying he's a bit of a cap dump, like to make the money work here. I think Nadeau in a first probably gets it done, but if the Rangers aren't eating 50%, I don't know, because Carolina's going to want to do more at the deadline, probably, maybe add to the back end. So yeah, like maybe add a goalie for insurance. So yeah, I think you need to make the money work somehow. They've been trying to move off of Kotkaniemi. I think Nadeau in a first might even be a bit of an overpayment because we don't know if Carolina is going to be able to sign him. And we know that they're willing to do deals even without an extension in place, which, a lot of GMs around the league are not comfortable doing that. So yeah, I think the value is there. Just to make the money work, Kotkaniemi has to go the other way.
I think the value is there. I think the fit makes sense. But the one thing I'm hung up on is if they don't want to do an extension, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, they've been burned by that already, right? So maybe they've learned their lesson. Or maybe they're just like, you know what? Screw it. Take our chances again. Like, let's just try to get the best player and try to win here. And maybe if they win, Panarin's like, you know what? I'll re-sign. That was fun. Let's win again. And by the way, like just looking at it, like I mentioned that Nadeau was picked 30th in 2023. Well, 2 other players who were picked in and around him have been traded already. So Callum Ritchie, as you guys know, was recently traded in the Brock Nelson deal to the Islanders. And then below him, who was picked 32nd, David Edstrom has been traded twice, as you guys know. So just kind of interesting, like those players all kind of picked in that range. Maybe it informed my opinion a little bit, but yeah, I thought Nadeau makes sense. But then I looked into the numbers, guys, and I think he projects to be a really good player. And I know that makes sense, like to include him in a trade here for Panarin, but I'd be worried about giving him up, to be honest. So I'm actually wondering, like, who says no in this deal? Like, I wonder if Carolina thinks that that's too much value going the other way for Panarin.
Top 9 potential in the NHL, that Bradley Nadeau. So
yeah,
it's going to be a future star.
That means a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Chad, I'm glad you mentioned Callum Ritchie and the Brock Nelson trade, because that is a good thing to bring up. That is sort of what the Rangers want to look for in terms of a return, the Brock Nelson type deal that we saw. And look, I'll be honest, like we saw that deal between the Avalanche and the Islanders last year. I thought the Avalanche got absolutely fleeced. Aging center for a really talented guy in Ritchie, plus a first round pick and another conditional pick as well. But Nelson has been unbelievable for the Avalanche, who have been an absolute juggernaut this year. 2026 has gotten off to a bit of a rockier start for them, but they've been great. He's been a big part of that team quietly. And now you see Ritchie contributing into the Islanders lineup. He's going to be a piece for them for a long time. So I think it's one of those deals that will work out as kind of a win-win. Definitely get the concern over trading away a really good young player. But what I like about your proposed mock deal there, if you will, is that it kind of follows that model of the Brock Nelson trade that we saw from last year. So it'll be interesting. Carolina is certainly not afraid. I would wonder as well, how would Panarin fit into their system, fit under Rod Brindamore? I think that's a legitimate question you have to ask as well, because with Rantanen, it just wasn't a fit. How would this go? And obviously, the two organizations, the Rangers and the Hurricanes, have a history of doing business with each other.
Yep.
They made the Keandre Miller deal last summer. So there you go. I definitely see the fit. I'd wonder about an extension there for sure. That's a big part of all of this. So we'll have to see, but makes some sense to me for sure.
I did wonder about that too, by the way, like how Panarin would fit into the system. And I'm torn. Like, is he a guy because he's skilled and dynamic enough and is such a great passer that he would fit in perfectly? Or is he a guy that kind of plays his own way out there and doesn't really adhere to a strict system and could be totally offensively neutered by playing in this rigid system that the Hurricanes play in? I'm kind of torn. Like, I really don't know how it would go, and we'd have to see it play out, right? But yeah, I did think about that.
And you know what? Like, they tried it with Rantanen, it didn't work. Mitch Marner could have ended up a Carolina Hurricane if he decided. Yes, that's been well told. And so it just because it didn't work with Rantanen, excuse me, doesn't mean that it can't work with another star player. And so it makes some sense to me for sure.
Yep. Okay, Harp, let's hear your deal.
Yeah. So one of the teams, of course, that we mentioned earlier that would be willing to do an extension. Actually, I'll repreface this by saying would only do a deal with the Rangers for Panarin if it involves an extension. So it works out, and that is a team in the Metro Division, the Washington Capitals, who, a couple of weeks ago were looking dead in the water. Tough loss to the Vancouver Canucks. Well, all of a sudden, thanks to Clay Stevenson, as we mentioned a little earlier, they find themselves back in the race and just a few points behind the New York Islanders in the Metro, believe it or not. So for me, it makes a ton of sense for the Capitals to do something like this. They went hard at Nikolai Ehlers in the offseason, who, of course, is a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. Didn't get him. And general manager Chris Patrick has been very open publicly about wanting to grab a very skilled star-level top-line winger. That is what the Capitals are looking for. They've done a great job over these last couple of years retooling on the fly. They've got a ton of picks and prospects in the bank that they would be able to make this deal without burning through a ton of their stuff that they've got stashed in the cupboards, whether it's picks or prospects. And they could easily do a 4 or 5 year extension as well. And boys, wouldn't it be fun to see Panarin with Ovi? You've got Protas there as well. Like, the Capitals have quite a few Russians, so I think it would be a perfect fit. They'd be willing to do an extension. I think it makes a ton of sense. So my proposed mock trade here is Panarin going to the Capitals, 50% retained. So the cap hit would be around $5.8 million. The Rangers would get back prospect Lyndon Lakovic, who the Capitals picked 25th overall in the first round of the 2025 NHL draft. 6'4", big, skilled, talented winger, a guy that a GM like Chris Drury would covet. On his entry-level deal, of course, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, he's got a $3 million cap hit for this season only. That's just a throw-in to help make the money work. Kind of similar to the Calgary Flames getting Zach Whitecloud in the Rasmus Anderson trade. He's a guy that you could easily flip afterwards for a late-round pick give a team some depth on the right side of their blue line. Then a 2027 first rather than in 2026, because the Capitals, yes, they do have their first round pick this year, but then they don't pick again until the fourth round, and they've got their own pick and the Vegas Golden Knights pick in the fourth there. So I don't think it makes a ton of sense for them to then give up a first in 2027, because you wouldn't be picking until the fourth round, or in 2026, excuse me. So again, Lakovic, Van Riemsdyk, 27 first and a second in 2028, just as a little extra for the Rangers retaining on Artemi Panarin. So what are your thoughts on that package, fellas, going back to the Rangers from the Capitals for Artemi Panarin?
Case?
I think I like it. Obviously, the fit makes a ton of sense, and everyone would love to see Ovechkin playing with Panarin. I would have loved to see Ovechkin playing with Panarin 5 years ago or a couple of years ago, but it's still going to be so good if that's the case. And they have all the money in the world to work with next season. So in terms of extending Panarin, it shouldn't be too challenging. I mean, they do have to get guys back like Ovi and Carlson, but when you have like $37 million or something crazy, it's well within their means. I'm not familiar enough with Lakovic to tell you if this is like a slam dunk of a prospect for them, but when you take a guy who was drafted in the first round and add a first round and a second and a player, it starts becoming a package that you can swallow pretty easily. So definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think the value is very similar to the two deals that Case and I proposed as well. Lakovic being a 27th overall pick in 2025, kind of that late first, very similar to Nadeau that I proposed. Obviously, we don't know much about Lakovic yet because he has not played anything other than major junior. So, I mean, all we can go off of is his junior numbers. And as we know, that can be misleading at times, and it's kind of just still a shot in the dark. It's as if they picked him this year in the draft. It's as close to magic beans as you can get, I would say. And then the draft pick, of course, it needs to be thrown in there. I wonder which pick the Rangers would prefer, whether this year or next. I kind of did the same thing in my deal, whether it's a 2026 or 2027. Makes sense for the Capitals to keep their 26 first, but not sure if that's what the Rangers would prefer. So, yeah, I think the value
you definitely
is there.
Want the 2026 pick. Just
are you sure?
In terms of value, this draft is ridiculously deep.
Do we know enough about next year to definitively make that call, though? That's what I'm wondering about. We know that this draft is deep, but who knows about next year?
Right, but they're also they take this draft and compare it to the last 6, and they're saying that this is the best draft. I know that none of these players have been picked or played in any real competition, but this is a pretty highly touted draft coming up here.
Yeah, and I guess if you're the Rangers, you're trying to turn this around as quickly as possible, right? Like while you still have your guys. So it does make sense for them to get the one this year, but I mean, we'll see if that would even be feasible. And plus the extension is the wrinkle here for me, because the Capitals obviously did their retool and they look like a team whose window is open right now, but how many years does Ovi have left? Could next year be his last year in the league, right? And then all of a sudden you've got a different aging Russian superstar to build around. And I don't know if the fit long-term is there. And we said that, the Capitals wouldn't do this deal without the extension. I'm not so sure. And then those two guys wouldn't be playing together because they both play the left wing position, except for on the power play, of course, they'd be playing together. I don't know. It could make a lot of sense. It could be a lot of fun, but I'm just not sure if it's the perfect fit is all.
Yeah, you have to imagine if Panarin looks at the team and says, "Oh, this is a team I want to be with for a long time. This is a team that's going to be competitive for the remaining 5 years of my career." And Not sure if that's the case. I mean, yeah, they've done their retool and they're good now, but the extension's huge. He wants the extension. Will he want to re-sign in Washington for 5 years to get that AAV that he wants? That could be a question.
Yeah, especially when he's going to be on more of an island when Ovi is, scoring 80 goals a year for Dynamo in the KHL. So that's something he has to consider too.
I think there'd be enough. I think there's enough there and enough coming, though, where that would be enticing for Panarin to re-sign and also realize that, you know what, there's enough going here for the future that these guys could be a contender, with Tom Wilson continuing to play the way he is, future captain of the Capitals, I think, after Ovi retires. And then you've got Cole Hudson on the way. Ryan Leonard continues to develop. Protus, you've got his brother too, the other Protus as well. And so they've, and other prospects that they have and picks. And, I think there's a really good chance that this could be real. But I mean, at the end of the day, we just don't know. But it makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, we heard the other day Elliot Friedman say that the Rangers want to potentially get this done before the trade freeze, which goes into effect tomorrow or today if you're listening to this on Wednesday. So hopefully, as Case alluded to off the top, hopefully the deal doesn't happen before we post this episode. But yeah,
exactly.
I could see it. It could make sense. And I think the value is there, which I keep coming back to.
Yeah, no, that's important as well. And hey, look, guys, that was a lot of fun. I thought we did a good job at kind of breaking things down and, trying to come up with a realistic value sort of based around the Brock Nelson trade for a guy like Artemi Panarin, who we expect to get dealt here very soon. Maybe sooner than we would like, but very soon. And again, the roster freeze goes into effect at 3 p.m. Eastern today, Wednesday, when this episode will be out, and then goes until the 22nd of February at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So that does it for episode 265. That was a fun one. Mock trades for Artemi Panarin, and we'll see what happens there. Again, NHL trade deadline, little over a month away on March 6th. So thanks so much for listening to episode 265, Boys in the Booth podcast, proud partner of I Play Hockey. Have a great one. Take care.